All right. This is one, actually, if I was smart, I'd save this for the first day of fishing season, but gosh, that's months away. So let's do it now. Yeah, why, heck yeah. I kind of like this story. It's about an old fishing buddy of mine, Ed the cat. Yeah, it's called Good Old Ed the Cat. Well, you'll see. Oh, yeah, you're going to like this one if you like fishing. Well, here we go. I once had a great friend named Ed. He was quite the cat. Ed actually was a cat, and a darn good one at that. I actually helped him be born. I did. He was in his mom's first litter. She had a bit of trouble figuring out what to do, so I had to do all the cord cutting on Ed and all his brothers and sisters. There's quite a few of them too, little tiny umbilical cords. But yeah, I got the hang of it, and I did have to call the vet to get instructions. And well, it was my first litter too. Mama Cat and I got it all pretty straight, and before you knew it, Ed and all the rest were nursing away while their mom purred and slept. And for the first year of Ed's life, we lived where there was a lot of traffic on our street. We didn't want a gray furry cat pizza out on the road in front of our house, so Ed was mostly an indoor cat, and but that didn't stop him from being a show off and a fool. Yeah. Oh no, no. One day, I brought. This is kind of funny. I brought a twig in from outside and just put it on the living room rug. Ed's brothers and sisters just ignored it. Ed didn't. He couldn't. He sniffed the twig. He looked it over a bit. Then he held one end of the twig in his mouth while he tried to swat the far end of the twig with his front paws. Of course, he couldn't reach the far end, but well, that didn't stop him. Soon, with the twig in his mouth, he was running up and down the hallway trying to catch the far end of the stick. I'm not sure if he realized that he'd never catch the other end, but I got to hand it to him. He never, ever stopped trying. It was his favorite toy. You give that cat a stick, and he was in heaven. Okay. Well, anyway, when he wasn't chasing sticks, Ed honed his jumping skills as a young cat. Yes. In all my life, friends, I've never seen a better jumper. Nope. Inch for inch, all I can say is Vladimir Yashenko, eat your heart out. Ed the cat's got you beat. Ed wasn't the biggest cat you'll ever see, but I'm sure he could easily easily over the head of a 6-foot man and laugh or purr about it all the way home. Yep. He used to spend hours jumping from the floor to the top of our china closet. Literally hours. He jumped, yeah, for hours. I'm not kidding. I used to check him for wings, but well, we never found any. He'd jump up to the top of it. We had to keep stuff off the top of the china closet. Yeah, everything had to be inside. So he'd knock, oh my God, things that go flying. Eventually, we moved from New Jersey and out into the deep forests of northern Pennsylvania. There in our little town, it was safe to let Ed out into the yard and the world. It didn't take long before he made friends with every person and domestic critter on our block. He was fixed, so the tomcats left him alone. He was a pretty big guy, so the dogs left him alone. He was tough. Yeah, Ed was pretty good in a fight if it came to that, but it seldom did. And the neighbors said that, well, he'd just walk into their homes, say hello, make himself comfortable on the sofa, and start purring for a scratch or a treat. All in all, he was the coolest cat in town. In a way, he was more dog than cat. Get right down to it. There was this beautiful creek that ran through our town. It's called the Loyal Sock Creek. And there's no better trout stream on earth, friends. I'm here to tell you. Frankly, it's more of a river than a creek. Whoever called it a creek was, yeah, he must have found it in the summer when it was thinner. But boy, most of the time that thing was a river. The Loyal Sock can get very ugly during the spring floods, during a period of heavy rain. You know, mostly though, it's just a gorgeous wide stream coming down the valley out of the mountains. It then passes our town, the town we lived in, and flows under a red-covered bridge. It rolls a bit further into the distance and goes under a highway bridge. And then it just kind of does this wide southern turn for the 30 or so mile run to the Susquehanna River. And from there to Baltimore, right. Even if you didn't have a worm or lure on your line, well, it was just fun to put your waders on and stand out in the middle of that creek and just take in the glory of it all. One day I was doing just that very thing. Of course, I had a lure on the line with worm attached, and of course, I was fishing, baby. And I could see cigarette smoke coming wafting out of the from one of the windows on the covered bridge. Yeah, the only three teenagers in town must have decided to hang out on the bridge and have a smoke. You'd have thought the bridge was on fire. Maybe they had a cigar. I don't know. Who knows? Besides, I was way more interested in catching a nice juicy trout. But again, that was like the big, that was the big scandal of the day, the kids smoking on the bridge. Well, it's a wooden bridge. Yeah. Heck, the other day, one of my neighbors caught I was more interested in catching a trout because the other day, one of my neighbors caught a 3 foot long rainbow trout just 100 yards upstream from where I was standing. You'd be surprised. It's funny. A week later, that trout grew to be more like 4 feet long and at least 10, 20 pounds heavier. It's great when you catch a fish and it just keeps growing like that, isn't it? I got to admit, it was a pretty cool fish for a 2.5 footer. I was lost in thought thinking about my that scrawny 2 footer the neighbor of mine caught just upstream from where I was standing. Shame it was just a brown trout, not a rainbow. Well, that's all right because I'm going to catch me a whale any second now. Easy on the line now, not too tight. Let it drift, let it drift. Watch that bobber. Easy. Darn mosquitoes. I wish I had a cigar. So it's ready to go holler to those kids, throw one down. Suddenly, and right out of nowhere, I hear screaming. I did. Inhuman screaming at that. It was coming from shore, right near my bait bucket. And there on the shore was my old pal Ed the cat. Yep, Ed was standing on my bait bucket so that I could see him. The weeds were pretty thick on shore, and Ed was meowing like he was nuts. He was sporting the face of a tiger. Of course, a tiger would have alarmed the jungle with his growl shaking the very leaves on the trees. Ed's yowling wasn't anywhere near that strong, but it was more than enough of a yell to scare fish for miles around. I hollered at him to calm down. Now I'm having a shouting contest with my cat. Good for fishing, yeah. That just made the hollering worse. I mean, if Ed was a collie, I'd have thought maybe Timmy fell down the well again. But this was just Ed, and he wouldn't shut up. I started to wade ashore. I was going to chase him away. As I got closer, Ed toned it down a bit, but only a little. Now he could still be heard in only 2 counties instead of the whole Keystone State. I was about 4 feet from shore when Ed finally shut up with the yowling and stared and started to pace back and forth, like a tiger in a cage. Then he got this odd look on his face. It was a look of determination. He backed up just a little. He made eye contact with me and then just took off running my way. I didn't know it, but I was standing on the end of a feline runway. Ed went airborne, sailing out over the river edge higher and higher, and landed with a plop right on my shoulder. He sunk his claws deep into my jacket and vibrated back and forth like a tree limb in the wind. That kept him from tumbling off my shoulder and into the drink. Good thing he had claws and I was wearing one of those heavy jackets. Man, with that perfect dive and a precise landing behind him, Ed curled himself around my neck and purred his best purr right in my ear. I thanked heaven it wasn't August as he locked his claws deeper into my shoulder, into my jacket. Thank heaven. It would have been my shoulder in the summer. One thing for certain, Ed wasn't going ashore. It was like I had a second. It was like I had a second head. There was only one thing I could do. I waded out to the old spot to fish some more. Of course, now I had the help of a fishing buddy. Big help. From that time on, when Ed the cat would see me grab my fishing pole, he'd drop whatever he was doing and stand right next to me. We'd walk side by side to the shoreline. Yep, my cat and me. I never trained him to carry the bait bucket, but I should have. On shore, I'd put on my waders and go out about a foot into the stream. Then I'd turn my back to the shore and go like that. And Ed would fly through the air and land on my lumber jacket. Then he'd slink up to my shoulders and lock himself in place. I knew he was set to go when his tail swished past my ears and got me on the nose. And he'd inspect every fish we caught, of course, and want his cut. Yes. Oh, and no, he never fell in. Thank heaven. Oh. He'd have been visiting Baltimore. That was a pretty fast stream. But nope, never fell in. Anyway, I thought you'd like that story. Now go fishing. There we go. I'll see you later, friends. God bless.